Assalamualaikum and warm welcome to everyone at the Seminar Antarabangsa Islam and Science 2023. Today, we set for a captivating journey into the world of SULH officer at the Syariah Court Negeri Sembilan. Together, we'll delve into the crucial roles, unravel the challenge they face during and after the COVID-19 pandemic, and collaboratively brainstorm the practical solution to overcome the challenge. I'm Dr. Maizatul Farisah Muhammad Mokhtar, proudly from Pusat Tamhidi, Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia. Buckle up for an engaging ride as we uncover the experience of SULH officers, applaud their resilience, and stay tuned for actionable recommendations that chart a course for a more robust legal future. Let's dive in and explore this fascinating landscape together. Before we go further with the presentation, here the outline for the presentations. I will start with the introductions, follow with the problem statements, aim, scope and methods, and then I will continue with the roles of SULH officer during pandemic COVID-19. I also will discuss what are the challenges faced by the SULH officer post-COVID-19, and lastly, I will give several recommendations to overcome the challenge faced by the SULH officers, mainly at the Syariah Court Negeri Sembilan, before I conclude the presentation. What is SULH? SULH actually similar to the mediation in conventional civil setting, while SULH officer plays similar role just like a mediator, whereby a SULH officer will approach the parties to help them or assist them or facilitate them to resolve their dispute within the Muslim community at Syariah Court. For the today's presentation, we are focusing on SULH officer at the Syariah Court Negeri Sembilan. They serve a formal means to address the dispute outside the litigation process in the court. Now, SULH officer was appointed by the court to conduct the SULH proceedings. They are normally hold the position of LS 41. These are the lowest grades of the SULH officer. The law govern for SULH officer, as I mentioned earlier, we are focusing on Syariah Court Negeri Sembilan, governed under Syariah Court Civil Procedure Negeri Sembilan Rules 2016, and SULH officer administrated under SULH Work Process JKSM, Jabatan Kehakiman Syariah Malaysia, and the Circular of the Chief Justice, Code of Ethics for SULH officer and SULH Work Process, and Circular of Chief Justice MSS 9/2002 jurisdiction of SULH officer. Let's take a look. What are the problem statement, aim, scope and method for this presentation? The problem statements for this presentation of this topic, whereby there are several challenges faced by the SULH officer, including during and post-pandemic, such as lack of SULH officer, ambiguous job scope of SULH officer, and gap in SULH proceeding itself. The aim for this presentation is to evaluate the challenge of SULH officer prior and post-pandemic COVID-19, including the laws, roles and challenge of SULH officer, and also to propose a recommendation to overcome the challenge that have arisen. Whilst the scope of this presentation will focusing on the SULH officer at Syariah Court Negeri Sembilan during and post-pandemic COVID-19 only. For this presentation and research, I use the library-based method and unstructured qualitative interview amongst with the Syariah Court Negeri Sembilan's officers, including the SULH officer. Next, the result and discussion. I will focus on the challenge of SULH officer at Syariah Court post new normal, specifically at Syariah Court Negeri Sembilan. There are several challenges found based on the research conducted faced by the SULH officer at Syariah Court Negeri Sembilan. These are the challenges identified faced by the SULH officer at Syariah Court Negeri Sembilan. The first one is lack of enforcement law for online SULH. Currently, there is no specific law govern on the online SULH, whereby there is an absence of provisions in regards to the online SULH in Syariah Court SULH Procedure Negeri Sembilan Rules 2016. The only guideline that used for the online SULH is the directive dated 14 June 2021 issued by the Chief Registrar of Jabatan Kehakiman Syariah Negeri Sembilan, or better known as JKSNS. The next challenge faced by the SULH officer is the lack of facility for online SULH. Currently, the online SULH at Syariah Court Negeri Sembilan using the Cisco WebEx application, whereby this app is not familiar not only amongst the parties, but also some of the SULH officers still are not master with this app in fully. The parties, on the other hand, much more prefer to use another online application such as a video call using WhatsApp. The next challenge faced by the SULH officer is the lack of SULH officer compared to the numbers of dispute registered at the Syariah Court. There are only currently about 5 SULH officers that handles the dispute at Syariah Court Negeri Sembilan, whereby this ratio are too low compared to the dispute registered at the Syariah Court. The next challenge faced by the SULH officer, now the roles of SULH officers is not only to conduct the SULH sessions in the SULH council, but actually there are also the additional job scope for SULH officer pre of the SULH council or the SULH session, and also post SULH session, that whereby the SULH officer must perform the additional job scope that are outside the SULH session, including preparation numbers of the documentation, and also to get in touch and approach with the parties and to ensure that they will participate with the session, and also to guide the parties using another method, for example, make in touch with them through the WhatsApp to guide them. So these are another additional job scope for the SULH officer, whereby it become a challenge for a SULH officer, especially when they have to focus with the numbers of the dispute that they need to handle. Now, the other challenge of the SULH officer is the deficiency in online dispute handling skill, whereby not all the SULH officer master to handle the dispute using the online methods, and lack of skills to handle the online dispute, that eventually become the challenge for the SULH officer to perform well during the SULH session. The next challenge identified is the handling the hotline and advice service under MyCare COVID-19, whereby this hotline was introduced to assist the parties who register or face with the dispute that are unable to have the SULH session. Now, this hotline and advice conducted by the SULH officer. This is one of the great examples, the additional job scope for the SULH officer, especially during and post new and during the COVID-19, and also after the COVID-19. So as you can see here, these are another challenge whereby the SULH officer need to handle the hotline and advice using WhatsApp or under this hotline call for the parties. Lastly, the challenge faced by the SULH officer is organizing SULH session after office hour or in the evening. Why is that so? Because there are numbers of cases, especially the postponed case during the COVID-19, and also the numbers of registered case using the SULH method to resolve the dispute, because there are so many backlog case, and so there are increased numbers of dispute registered for the SULH session, and lack of SULH officer. Therefore the SULH officer have to conduct the session after the office hour or in the evening. These are the challenge faced by the SULH officer, and these are the challenge that the SULH officer need to overcome. As I mentioned earlier, there are several challenges faced by the SULH officer, and that's challenge from the previous slide I mentioned that need to be overcome. Therefore, based on the research conducted, I make several recommendations to overcome this challenge, to address the issues faced by the SULH officer, especially the challenge faced by them. These are the several recommendations that in line with the challenge faced by the SULH officer, and may address the issues that face. The first one is I recommend to amend the Syariah Code Civil Procedure relating to the SULH, especially online SULH, whereby until today there is no specific written law govern on the online SULH, and the attendance for the parties to attend the online session. Therefore, it is crucial to amend the Syariah Code Civil Procedure relating to SULH, for instance, to amend and to consider to insert the provision in regards to the online SULH, and the to make a compulsory attendance for the party to attend the SULH session, to avoid parties from absence from the SULH session. That is one of the examples or things that Syariah Code Civil Procedure should consider in order to make the SULH proceeding smooth and more efficient. The next recommendation is refine the scope of SULH officer, whereby, as we can see, there are several challenges faced by the SULH officer due to the additional job scope. Therefore, it is compulsory to refine the job scope of SULH officer. And next is based on the challenge faced by the SULH officer, including they have to conduct the SULH session outside office hour, is because of lack of SULH officer and numbers of cases registered for the SULH session. Therefore, it is crucial to designate more SULH officer, and it is important to appoint more SULH officers so that this more SULH officer can help to reduce the additional job, and also to exist the dispute to resolve within the allocation times. Therefore, more SULH officer can help to reduce the backlog case as well. Now, the next recommendation is to conduct the IT training and workshop from time to time, not only one time, but from time to time, and related to the database training for both, not only focusing on the dispute party who are not familiar with the, for example, the online SULH, but also amongst the SULH officer who are maybe lack of master in conducting the SULH session, especially online SULH session. Okay, so it is important to have the IT training and workshop from time to time to ensure that they maintain and they keep update with the new technologies and new, for example, new application they use for the SULH sessions. And finally, I think this also are more important to focus on. That is why I think it is important to recommend this recommendation, which is to change the perception of SULH officer toward the implementation of the SULH new normal, whereby it is important for the SULH officer to accept that nowadays we are living in the post new normal, and then we have to adapt a change in the SULH session. For example, online SULH, and also the communication within the parties and the SULH officer, not only face to face but also via online, including using the apps they created to make the communication much easier with the parties and also the SULH officer. Therefore, it is important for the SULH officer to change the perception and to accept the facts that we are moving forwards to the new dimension, new technology, new era. I think that's all for the recommendation. Before I conclude this session, it is important to acknowledge that this recommendation not only able to overcome the challenge but also to ensure that the SULH session will run smoothly and more efficient. Now we are at the final part of the presentation, which is the conclusions. I will conclude this conclusion stated that the SULH officer also play important roles as part of the court officer, whereby the SULH officer play as a neutral role to assist and facilitate the SULH session for parties to resolve their dispute. However, the SULH officer is not obligated to handle the SULH session at SULH Council, but also they must prepare all the documentation before and after the SULH Council. This is I talked about previously in regards to the job additional job scope. However, during the new normal and post-new normal, the challenge faced by the SULH officer become much greater than before, such as additional job scope, lack of SULH officer, conducting SULH at night, and also conduct SULH using the online SULH session. Therefore, Syariah Judiciary needs to address this challenge faced by the SULH officer in order to ensure the effectiveness of SULH to resolve disputes such as amendment to SULH proceeding, refine the job scope, appoint more SULH officer, and change the perception of the SULH officer. Before I end the session, I would like to take this opportunity to give the acknowledgement to the research grant under Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia entitled The Challenge of Syariah Court Annex Mediation in Negeri Sembilan, whereby our research group gratefully acknowledge the funding received toward this research grant from the university as well as the support and assistance given through this research. Before I end the session, thank you so much for your attention. And if you have any question, feel free to contact me at my email as stated at the beginning of my presentation. And you may also contact me through my contact numbers as I stated and provided in the early presentation. Thank you so much again for this opportunity. And inshallah, I will see you again next SAIS 2024. Assalamualaikum and thanks everyone.